So we're very pleased to welcome to join us this afternoon, Rabbi Allison Vann. Allison is the spiritual leader of the Suburban Temple-Kol, and she's been so since 2011. There, she takes care of the spiritual needs of families. She has brought her own spirit of innovation to her work with such introductions such as Art, which is intergenerational education. She previously served in San Antonio, Texas, but it wasn't long after her arrival in Cleveland that she truly fell in love with our city and calls it her own and her home. She served on the board of trustees for Jewish Family Services Association and the Jewish Education Center in Cleveland. She was president of the Greater Cleveland Board of Rabbis from 2017 to 2019. Allison sees her role as a rabbi to help point people in the right direction, to teach, to learn, and to cry and laugh together. Her work extends far beyond the location of her temple and her community on Fairmount Avenue. I'm sorry, it's on Suburban, isn't it? On Suburban Avenue. And her work across the state with Reform congregations in advocating for social justice has gained her tremendous respect. One of her prior board chairs said of her, Allison lives the mission of healing the world. He called her a warrior for good. She is a proud member of the Leadership Cleveland Class of 2019, and you have a sharing session from your class with us today. Allison, thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Marianne and Bob and Rachel for all your support in getting me here today. And I know that we don't have a lot of time, and those of you who know me know I always have a lot to say. So I'm going to get started with a shout out to a couple of people in addition to the leadership class of 2019. I have a lot to say about you. We drank the most coffee, we had the most fun, all of those amazing things. I also want to thank a number of people from Suburban Temple-Kol. I have a cheering group from you here. My colleague, JB Davis, Dorothea Polster, who's on the executive committee with me, Dennis Lehman, who just left the executive committee, and a couple of other of you here who are hiding without your photos. So I really thank you so much. Laura Barnard is here. A whole bunch of you are here. So thank you for being here. Erica Alemdar, a number of you are here. So thank you for being here. And I want to really touch on, I could touch on a lot, touch on three main points. The first is what happened in March. One day we were celebrating essentially the Jewish holiday of Purim, which is a holiday of celebration and being together and overcoming. And the next, by Friday, that was a Monday or a Tuesday, by Friday, the state was shelter at home. And so what did we do in that beginning part 65 weeks ago? Marianne is right. It feels like at least 65 weeks ago. What did we do then? What did we do in that meantime? And what are we doing now? So in the immediate moment of, oh my goodness, what's happening? We first created what I loosely call a program, which was Congregation Connected. We asked the Board of Trustees and make phone calls and emails and even snail mail letters to find our members. This was unprecedented and scary. And we did that. We reached, I just pulled up, JB, you'll be happy to know your chart lives. I've reached, we reached 79% or more of our congregation in those first scary weeks of shelter at home, whether by phone, email, or even for some of our most frail and elderly members, by letter. Just saying we are here for you and we care about you. And we called that Congregation Connected. And then we went on and we connected with the people that we were most worried about and continued to be in touch with them all the way through. That was what we did in our panic mode, if you remember, all the way back to March, which was literally, I don't know, 5 years ago. And then we sat down as a staff to learn new skills. If you think back to March, how many new skills you have? How many of you are great at Zoom? How many of you are now using, I have 2 screens on my desk. I never had 2 screens before. How many of you have so many new skills? So then we sat down to what do we need to do to function as a congregation that isn't using a building? And how are we going to do this? Do we need to have a staff meeting every day to do this? We just kind of got busy figuring out what skills we needed to have just to try to get our everyday up and running. And if you remember, March, April, and May was, how many times did Zoom crash? All of that was unbelievable. And it felt utterly chaotic. And so we realized that we really needed to have some organizing principles, some values around which we shaped everything. We needed a foundation. And so we looked to what many of us call values-based decision-making. And we really gathered around these 4 fundamental principles or values that we look to every time we are, as a staff, as an executive committee, and now we've shared with the board, what are we trying to accomplish here? Where are we? And hopefully, I think I moved it. Hang on one sec. So I'm going to quickly go through these 4. So these are 4 Jewish values around which we as a staff have really gathered. One is pikuach nefesh. Pikuach nefesh, if you've never heard of Hebrew, it really means saving a life. And these are widely this is the most important of all Jewish values. No matter what we have to do, we have to consider the health and safety of our members and our staff and all of us the most important thing. This is why our building is still closed. This is why we have not opened for services. We still do services on Zoom, even though churches are exempt from the law, because COVID still exists COVID doesn't go away in a sanctuary. COVID still exists in a sanctuary. So it doesn't like magically disappear inside a sanctuary. So pikuach nefesh and saving lives is the most. The second, and I could spend a long time on each one of these, so if you have questions, please feel free to contact me. Kiddusha comes from the word kadosh, if you've heard of that, holiness and uniqueness. Fundamentally, we are each holy. You are holy, I am holy, and each relationship and connection is holy. And so we are each unique, and we each have unique needs. And being alone in our buildings, in our homes, requires unique and responses. And so we need to create connections, and we need to create unique responses to each situation. And so when we respond to the kadosh, or the kiddusha, the holiness, in each one of us, responsibly and fully, then we will continue to make sure that we are all really making sure our congregation stays together. Third, chazon, vision. We all have new skills. We all see the world completely differently. Some of that is because of struggle. Some of that is because of creativity. All of that is because of the pandemic. We can apply that chazon and use it, whether it's because our surge capacity is less or because our surge capacity keeps going. But this chazon is very, very important. And the last is actually not Hebrew, it's Aramaic. which is the sister language of Hebrew, the law of the land is the law. We have actually struggled with this a lot as a staff. Why have we struggled with this? Because the laws are constantly changing, and many of the laws aren't laws, they're guidelines and they're principles. And we have struggled because the leadership in our state, in our country, is not always clear or is not often clear. And so what is it that we're trying to institute, and how do we do that? So for example, what we have done is when the color coding system came into Ohio, we made the decision that when Cuyahoga County was in red, not going to do any social distance programming because that was clear. However, when things are constantly changing, we're not really sure how to follow this. So we fall back to pikuach nefesh. What is it that we can do to make people the most safe? What can we do to make things the most holy? And what can we do to give the most vision? So with these 4 values in place, we have taken this as our, our foundation, because everything feels pretty chaotic. And we needed organizing principles with which to function as a congregation when all of us go in to answer the mail, to do projects, but we're working from home. And we have a staff meeting every day, but we see each other in boxes. And we see our temple members in boxes. So how can we honor the Kiddusha, the holiness, with vision? So we do things like, I have one-on-one pastoral sessions with our members as often as they can, because that's vision. I do them on Zoom, having vision and honoring the holiness while being safe. So I tried to talk really fast and do a lot. And I didn't touch on any of the social justice stuff, but I tried to really show how you can keep a congregation with the beautiful values of Judaism together in a crazy time. And I'd love lots and lots of questions.
Allison, thank you so much. And I think certainly there is an interest in having an understanding of how you have approached some of the social justice issues. So can you take a few minutes and share what's been going on these past few months?
Sure. So early on, before George Floyd and that, we did a mitzvah day. Every day is mitzvah day. We like to abbreviate things in our staff, so we called it EDIMD, but that was just for the staff. So what we did is we gathered canned goods, and we had a drive-through. And so everyone was able to come to the temple, drop off each other. And that was back in April or May. That was May 4th, or May the 4th be with you. And that was the first time we had seen each other since March. And that really set a foundation for being together, and how important it was to see each other, how important it was to do this work. After we dropped off our canned goods, we had our music director play some music in the parking lot, and everyone went through their, stood around their cars and danced, and it was really special. And we raised $1,800 in one day for the food bank. So it was really clear that we need these things. The other thing, so that set our foundation. The other thing that we're doing is I am on the core team for something called the Religious Action Center Ohio, RAC Ohio. RAC Ohio brings together all of the Reformed congregations throughout Ohio to be an advocacy voice for justice throughout Ohio. So in the past, each Reformed congregation worked on their own to do advocacy. In this case, we're bringing all of the Reformed congregations because numbers speak volumes. So we have been working on criminal justice reform for 2 or 3 years, and we've had significant success. SB 3 just passed in the House and is moving forward. So what we're doing from now into November is we're doing voter and civic engagement with the post office. This is excruciatingly important. 3 weeks ago, we had a speaker, and on Zoom, we had over 400 people come, and we engaged each clergy person to invite their members to come. It was beautifully attended. Last Monday, we had a Zoom call where members of the congregation of each congregation were invited to learn how to create voter engagement teams in their congregations. So RAC Ohio helps to teach members to do civic engagement. I've been speaking out on social justice issues on Friday nights and writing letters. So that's what we're mostly engaged right now in civic, so speaking out on behalf of social justice. I could talk more, but that would go the rest of the time. So I hope that was enough.
Absolutely. And for everyone on the call, please continue to share your questions in the chat box. Allison, what have you heard from your congregation? What are their worries, and how have you worked to support them with those worries?
So their worries are all over the place because we have a predominant demographic, and many of you are here, so hello. Our predominant demographic, much like the Jewish community in Cleveland, is 50 and up. So many of them are concerned with, those who've met with me are concerned with loneliness, concerned with grandchildren, concerned themselves. And so what I did early on was take out the middle person. So early on, the way you used to schedule with me was to call my incredible admin assistant, Dale, and make an appointment with me. I took that out, and now you just work, I have Calendly. So you can automatically make an appointment with me. So I am trying to be much more available for people to talk to. I'm hearing a lot of loneliness, concern, and significant amount of concern for the world. What's going to happen in the future? How are we going to be okay? Concern for, is this ever going to end? And an amazing amount of fatigue. And then for our younger families like me with kids, I can't manage it all. No more bandwidth, exhaustion, frustration, anger, surge capacity is done. Things like that.
So how have you managed kind of the stress and the fatigue for your staff and for yourself, especially when you're hearing and supporting individuals who we're all dealing with such challenges right now?
So I am really, I should say JB and I are really blessed with an extraordinarily supportive congregation. I'm hearing a lot of nightmare stories outside of Cleveland of congregations that are unbelievably and not understanding of the stress. In fact, there was an article that came out today on an incredible website called E-Jewish Philanthropy, and the image was of a clergy person slammed by a boulder and laying underneath a boulder with lack of permission to even ever take time off. I don't feel that way. I feel very supported by the congregation. At the same time, there is really no time to take off because we're learning new skills. We're creating everything 100% from scratch. So we're entering to the High Holy Days, the Jewish High Holy Days, which is the Jewish New Year, the Day of Atonement, and the school year for our learning program. And everything is brand new, literally new. And it's even different than being a brand new rabbi. Literally, we are creating new material. And that is incredibly time consuming. And typically we hold ourselves to a very high standard. So there's a push-pull of a congregation that very much wants us to take care of ourselves and a staff that holds ourselves to very, very high standards.
What has been the most surprising to you during the past few months when you think about pandemic and the social unrest that we've been experiencing?
Surprising about the pandemic and the social unrest, I think finally given itself the voice that it's needed. I think the social unrest is been there bubbling below the surface for a really long time, and the voices haven't been heard. I either read or saw a video, kind of, my sister calls every day Blur's Day, and I just think that's brilliant. So it's on Well Blur's Day. That these voices and this need for justice have been there, and we've all been so busy and so not able to hear them for so long that the pandemic has forced us to hear them.
What impact might the pandemic have on organized religion? Have you seen an increase in engagement and interest given the loss and uncertainty brought by the past few months?
I don't know if we know yet what the impact on organized religion will be. I'm both scared and intrigued. I see an uptick in some areas of engagement. I do. I think people really need both a buoy and an anchor. They need to feel uplifted in really difficult times, and they need to feel anchored that things are not totally in chaos all the time. And they need the messages of hope that things are going to be okay. Organized religion has not always done itself the best service with the messages and with moving forward. And so we've been stuck, and I say we, I mean organized Judaism, organized Christianity, organized Unitarian, we've all been sort of stuck. And so it could be a possibility to move forward in positive ways if people are ready to hear the needs.
Now, you mentioned the silver lining of all the new skills that we've gained in this time. Are there other unexpected gifts of this time that you can reflect on?
Yeah, I think people are tapping into their own sense of spirit and their own needs in a different way. One of the things that we do on Friday night is we use our chat and Zoom for people to lift up things that they're grateful for. And I feel that people are beginning to show a sense of vulnerability in new ways. And I am eager to see ways that we're tapping into our spirituality and connecting spirituality and religion in new ways. You know, I'm religious, I'm spiritual but not religious has been a common theme for the last 8 to 10 years. And when people say I'm spiritual but not religious, there's a disconnect with the of religion because of some of the damages that organized religion has done to many people. And I believe they can go hand in hand if done well. And we can tap into those beautiful feelings of spirituality and those connections and really harness the positive pieces of religion really beautifully. And I'm beginning to see that come true.
So how can we as a community really support one another and the vulnerable among us?
I think that it's harder and harder because what people really want is a role. People want to feed the hungry and they want to drop things off and they want to do and they want to be active. And I have so they want to be active and they want to do things. And there's not so much we can do in volunteering. You know, we can't do things. And so we want to, that's harder. But what we can do is find emotional ways to support. We can make phone calls and we can email, and those are the kinds of things that take a lot more commitment and discipline and are a little harder.
So Allison, for those of us who are on the call, what do you need from the community? How can we support you in your efforts?
What a beautiful question. Thank you. There was an article, again, on E-Jewish philanthropy that came out yesterday or the day before, and it was a tough article, and it said a year off from synagogue, a year off from church. And there are so many people who have been engaged who are saying, what's the value this year? Why do it this year? And I think for many people who've been engaged in their church and their faith, say, why bother this year? What's in it for me this year? Don't give up on us. Stick with us. Whether you're engaged in your church, whether you're engaged in your synagogue, there's a lot of value. There's a lot to be found, and there's a lot that we can do together to find new paths. So don't give up for a year. Don't come back in a year when we're back in the buildings. Stick with us. I think you'll find it valuable.
Allison, thank you so much for your time today. And I'm going to comment on one of the comments shared in the chat box because I think it is really reflective for the day today. You talked about finding moments of joy and gratitude, and Summer Paris is feeling very thankful for dancing teenagers in the background of Zoom calls.
Summer, it's great to hear from you. I'm great for Leadership Cleveland Class of 19. I think Summer and I have similar age kids. And I love that he wasn't embarrassed.
Well, Allison, thank you again. We are so appreciative of your thoughts and your words today. And with that, I'm going to turn it back to Marianne.
Thanks, Rachel, and thanks so much, Allison. It's clear why you have such a loyal following within your congregation and within the community and throughout the state. You are clearly leaving a large, large footprint. So thank you for all that you do.